My mother-in-law forbid me from attending her cousin's wedding. Hours later, her mother posted a photo with him and another man with the caption, "My favorite son-in-law." What they didn't know was that I had hired a professional photographer to document every second of that ceremony. While everyone was toasting the newlyweds, I was in my living room, preparing the most devastating revenge they could imagine. I'm Thomas. I'm 34 years old, and until 3 days ago, I thought I had a solid marriage. Catherine and I had been married for 8 years. We met in college. She was studying interior design, and I was studying civil engineering. She was always the woman of my dreams. Smart, ambitious, with that smile that lit up any room. Or so I thought. It all started 2 weeks ago when Catherine came home earlier than usual. I was in my home office reviewing blueprints for a project when I heard her drop her keys on the dining room table with more force than necessary. "Thomas, I need to talk to you," she said from my office doorway. Her tone was strange, like when someone rehearses something awkward. I took off my glasses and looked at her. She was nervous, fidgeting with the engagement ring on her finger. That gesture had always seemed charming to me, but that afternoon it put me on alert. "My cousin Robert is getting married in 2 weeks," she said quickly, almost tripping over the words. "It's a small wedding, very intimate, just close family." "Perfect," I replied, smiling. "What day is it? I'll have to take the day off work from the construction site." Her face tightened in a way I had never seen before. "Thomas, the thing is, my mom thinks it would be better if I go alone." I stared at her, not understanding. "Sorry, it's just, you know how my family is, very traditional, very close-knit. Robert specifically requested only blood relatives, nothing personal." I felt a pang in my chest. In 8 years of marriage, they had never excluded me from a family event. I had attended birthdays, christenings, graduations. I was part of that family, or at least I thought I was. "Catherine, we're husband and wife. Legally, I am part of your family." She avoided my gaze. "I know, honey, but it's just 1 day. Plus, you'd be bored. It will be just people talking about old memories and family gossip." Something in her voice didn't sound sincere. I'd been with her long enough to recognize when she was lying. That high-pitched tone, that way of talking faster than usual. "Are you sure that's all it is?" "Yes." "God, Thomas, don't make this harder than it is. It's just a wedding. I'll be back the same day." I decided not to press the issue then, but my gut told me something was off. The following days were strange. Catherine became more distant. She spent hours locked in the bathroom with her phone. When I asked her what she was doing, she said she was coordinating wedding details with her cousin. One night, while she was sleeping, her cell phone vibrated on the nightstand. I'm not the type of guy who checks phones, but the screen lit up showing a message from her mother. "Remember, the dress needs to be ready for Saturday. Robert is excited." Robert excited about Catherine's guest dress? That was weird. The next day, I pretended to be fine with not attending the wedding. But I was actually planning something. I hired a private investigator named Frank, a guy recommended by a co-worker. I explained the situation and gave him all the information about the wedding. Location, time, names of those involved. "I want photos, videos, everything," I told him. Frank nodded professionally. "Do you suspect infidelity?" "I don't know, but something isn't right." The day of the wedding arrived. Catherine woke up nervous, more than she should have been for a simple family celebration. She spent 3 hours getting ready. I noticed she applied her makeup more carefully than usual. She put on her most expensive perfume, the one she only wore on special occasions. She was wearing a navy blue dress that had cost a fortune and that she had only worn once, to our own civil wedding. "You look beautiful," I said from the bed. She flinched, as if she had forgotten I was there. "Thanks, honey. Don't wait up for me, I'll probably be late." She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, not even on the lips, and practically ran out of the room. I heard the Uber arrive and the front door close. I sat in bed for 5 full minutes, processing the strangeness of everything. Then I grabbed my phone and called Frank. "She's on her way," I informed him. "Perfect. My team is in position. You'll hear from me soon." The next 2 hours were torture. I tried to distract myself by watching TV, checking work emails, organizing papers. Nothing worked. My mind kept creating scenarios, each one worse than the last. Finally, around 6 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was Frank. "Thomas, I need you to sit down for this." My heart started pounding violently. "What's wrong?" "Your wife. She is not a guest at this wedding. She is the bride." I felt like someone had hit me in the stomach with a hammer. "What did you say?" "The ceremony started 20 minutes ago. Your wife is marrying a man named Robert Miller. He's not her cousin, Thomas. He's her boyfriend. And from what I could gather, they have been in a parallel relationship for 2 years. Frank's words reached me muffled, as if I were underwater. 2 years. Our entire recent life had been a lie. All those work trips she claimed to have, all those nights she came home late saying she'd had dinner with friends. "Are you sure?" was all I could manage to articulate. "I'm sending you the first photos right now. I'm so sorry." I hung up and waited. Seconds later, my phone started vibrating with notifications. I opened the first image and my world crumbled. There was Catherine, my wife, wearing a full wedding gown, not a blue guest dress like she had pretended when leaving the house. A long white dress, with lace and a train dragging on the floor. She wore a delicate veil and carried a bouquet of white roses. She was radiant, smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in years. Next to her, a tall, dark-haired man looked at her with adoration. Behind them, I recognized her mother, my mother-in-law, Gail, crying tears of happiness. Her father walked proudly with Catherine down the aisle of a small chapel decorated with white flowers. I kept scrolling. More photos, the exchange of rings, the kiss, the hugs, everyone applauding, and the one that completely shattered me. Her mother posting a photo of Catherine and Robert on social media with the caption, "Today my daughter is finally marrying the right man, my favorite son-in-law. Robert, the right man. After 8 years with me." I got up from the couch, dizzy, feeling nauseous. I went to the bathroom and threw up. Then I washed my face with cold water, looking at myself in the mirror. The man looking back suddenly seemed 10 years older. My phone kept receiving photos. Frank was doing a meticulous job. He had captured every moment, every angle. The vows, the toast, Catherine dancing with Robert, her entire family celebrating what they clearly considered a victory. Then a video arrived. I played it with trembling hands. It was Gail, my mother-in-law, giving a speech. "Today is a very special day," she said with an emotional voice. "Some of you know this path hasn't been easy. My daughter had to wait a long time to be with the love of her life. There were obstacles, complicated situations to resolve. But true love always finds its way. Robert, officially welcome to this family. You are the son-in-law I always dreamed of having." The words sliced through me like knives. Obstacles, complicated situations. I was the obstacle. I was the complicated situation they had to resolve. I sat down again, no longer in shock, but entering a phase of cold, calculated clarity. Catherine hadn't just cheated on me. She had planned an entire wedding, coordinated with her whole family, making everyone an accomplice to this massive betrayal. And the worst part, She was probably planning to keep both marriages a secret, living a double life indefinitely. I called Frank again. I need everything, every photo, every video, every detail. And I need to know exactly who knew about this. Names of all the guests, evidence of how long they've been planning this. Can you get that? Yes, but it's going to take time and it will be more costly. I don't care about the price. I want absolutely everything. I hung up and started doing my own investigative work. I checked the shared bank statements. There they were. Large withdrawals over the last 6 months that Catherine had justified as decoration expenses for remodeling the living room. $20,000 in total. They had clearly gone to pay for the wedding with Robert. I checked her email on our shared computer. She hadn't deleted everything. I found exchanges with a wedding planner, with a florist, with the event venue. All the dates matched up. She had been planning this for months, maybe longer. Then I did something I never thought I would do. I looked at her spare phone, that old one she kept in a drawer, just in case. It was unlocked. There I found complete conversations with Robert going back 3 years. I can't stand pretending with Thomas anymore. Read a message from 6 months ago. Every day I spend with him, I feel more guilty. But it won't be long now, my love. In a few months, I'll be free. Robert replied, I know, my life, but you have to stick to the plan. If you file for divorce now, it could get legally messy. Better to wait until after our wedding. That way, we'll have everything secured. That way, we'll have everything secured. Of course, they were planning how to take everything from me in a future divorce. Probably after the wedding, Catherine would return home and start creating conflicts. To find reasons to justify a separation where she was the victim and I was the guilty one. I kept reading. There were messages from her mother. Catherine, are you sure Thomas doesn't suspect anything? We can't risk him showing up on Saturday. And Catherine's reply, don't worry, Mom. I told him it was a blood-only family wedding. He believed it all. He's so naive. Those words hurt more than anything else. Naive. Trusting. That's what I had been. An idiot in love who blindly trusted the woman who promised to love me for the rest of her life. But that was about to change. I stayed up all night, reading every message, looking at every photo Frank sent me. There were more than 200 images and 15 videos. The documentation was perfect, irrefutable. Catherine smiling as she cut the cake with Robert. Catherine dancing her first dance as a wife. Catherine toasting with champagne as her family congratulated her effusively. In no photo did she look remorseful or guilty. She looked happy, radiant, as if I had never existed. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, I started organizing everything methodically. I created digital folders with specific names, evidence of infidelity, evidence of bigamy, financial fraud, family conspiracy. Every photo, every message, every suspicious bank transaction was classified and backed up on 3 different devices. I wasn't going to let any of this disappear. I also researched our state's laws on bigamy. It turned out that marrying while still being married was not only grounds for immediate divorce, but constituted a criminal offense. Catherine and Robert could face criminal charges. That information gave me a dark satisfaction I had never experienced before. Near dawn, I heard Catherine's car park in front of the house. It was 5:30 in the morning. I quickly put away my laptop, tidied up all the papers, and lay down in bed, pretending to sleep. I needed to see what she would do, how she would act returning from her other wedding. I heard the front door open carefully, her footsteps trying to be silent. I felt her enter the bedroom, slowly taking off her shoes. There was a long pause, maybe 10 minutes before she went into the bathroom. I heard the shower running for almost half an hour. When she finally came out, she got into bed with extreme caution. I could feel her tension, her body rigid, trying not to touch me. I wondered if she felt any guilt, or if she was simply calculating her next moves. At 8 o'clock in the morning, I pretended to wake up, stretched, yawned, and turned toward her with a fake smile. "Good morning. How was the wedding?" Catherine opened her eyes slowly, as if she had also been pretending to sleep. "It was nice, very traditional. You know how my family is." "Did you have fun?" "Yeah, but nothing crazy. Like I told you, just older folks talking about boring stuff." She stretched exaggeratedly. "I'm exhausted. I danced way too much." "You danced your first dance as another man's wife," I thought. But I kept smiling. "I'm glad you had a good time. Do you want me to make coffee? Please let me sleep a little longer, and then I'll come down." I left the room with my stomach churning. In the kitchen, while I brewed coffee I wouldn't drink, I received a message from Frank. "Additional information. Robert Miller works at the same design firm as your wife. They have been collaborating on projects for 3 years. There are records of shared work trips to other cities. Sending you the details." Of course, the work trips. Catherine always came back from those trips more distant, colder toward me. Now it all made sense. Every absence had been an opportunity to be with Robert. Every excuse of "I have to stay an extra day for a difficult client" had been a carefully constructed lie. I decided it was time to act. I called David, my best friend from college and a matrimonial lawyer. "David, I need to see you urgently. It's about Catherine." His tone changed immediately. "What happened?" "I prefer to explain in person. Can you today?" "Give me 2 hours. See you at my office." I left a note for Catherine saying I had to handle a work matter and left the house with my laptop and a USB drive containing all the evidence. David's office was downtown. When I arrived, he greeted me with obvious concern on his face. I had known him for 15 years, and he could read me well. "You look terrible, man. What happened?" I sat down across from his desk and opened my laptop. "I need you to see this, and I need your legal advice." For the next hour, David reviewed every photo, every message, every document. His expression went from surprise to disbelief, then to outrage. Thomas, this is bigamy. It's a felony. Catherine could go to prison for this. I know. Do you want to proceed criminally, or do you just want the divorce?" I leaned back in the chair, considering the question. Part of me wanted to completely destroy her. I wanted to see her face severe legal consequences. But another part, the part that still remembered the woman I fell in love with 12 years ago, hesitated. First, I want the divorce, fast and clean. But I want her to know that I have this evidence and that I can use it if she tries to complicate things. David nodded. "That's smart. With this evidence, she won't have any chance of fighting for property or alimony. In fact, you could sue her for fraud and recover all the money she spent on her other wedding. I want that, every last cent." "Perfect. I'll prepare the divorce papers for Monday. In the meantime, I suggest you start separating all your finances. Cancel shared credit cards, move your money to an individual account, change passwords for everything." I spent the rest of the day executing every one of David's recommendations. I opened a new bank account and transferred all my money. I canceled the credit cards where she was an authorized user. I changed the passwords for our streaming accounts, shared emails, everything. I also called my bank to ensure she couldn't access anything related to our investments. When I returned home around 7 o'clock in the evening, Catherine was in the living room watching TV. She looked relaxed, with no apparent worries. That infuriated me more than anything else. She had just committed bigamy and was sitting in my house, watching my TV, as if nothing had happened. "Hi, honey," she greeted me with a smile. "How was your day?" "Productive," I replied curtly. "I'm hungry. Should we order food? Sure, the usual. We ordered Chinese food and ate in an uncomfortable silence. I could barely look at her without feeling nauseous. Every fake smile, every attempt at casual conversation made my stomach turn. This woman had betrayed me in the cruelest way possible, and there she was, acting like we were a normal couple. After dinner, she went to bed early, saying she was still exhausted from the wedding. I stayed in the living room, planning my next moves. Then, my phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number with an attached photo. It was a screenshot of Gail, my mother-in-law's, social media. She had updated her status with more wedding photos, this time with effusive comments about how beautiful her daughter looked and how wonderful Robert was. "Finally, my daughter is with the man she deserves," read one of the comments she had left on the photos. "Some things are worth waiting for." Comments from friends and family filled the post. "What a gorgeous bride. Robert is a lucky man. They deserve all the happiness in the world." At least 50 people had liked and commented. The interesting thing is that none of those friends and family members knew Catherine was already married to me. Or maybe some of them did know and didn't care. That whole family was complicit in this betrayal. Then I decided to do something I probably shouldn't have done. But I no longer cared about playing fair. I created a fake social media account using a generic name and started saving every post, every photo, every comment related to the wedding. I wanted to have documentation not only of the event itself, but also the public reaction, the shared celebration of a marriage that was legally invalid and morally repugnant. I also started investigating Robert Miller. It wasn't hard to find information about him. He had public profiles on several social media platforms where he showed off his lifestyle. Photos at expensive restaurants, exotic trips, a late-model sports car. His LinkedIn profile described him as a creative director at the same firm where Catherine worked. I dug deeper and discovered something interesting. Robert had also been married before. He divorced 4 years ago. Public records showed that his ex-wife had sued him for infidelity. The pattern was clear. This guy was a serial womanizer who didn't respect commitments. The question that plagued me was, did Catherine know about Robert's history? Did she care? Or was she so blinded by whatever she felt for him that she ignored all the red flags? I spent the next few hours creating a complete dossier on Robert. His address, his public finances, his professional connections. I even found photos of him with other women at recent social events. This man didn't seem like someone ready to settle down, which made this whole situation even more absurd. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I received another message from Frank. Additional information that might interest you. Robert Miller has 2 investment accounts under his name. One of them was opened 6 months ago with an initial deposit of $50,000. Do you want me to investigate the origin of those funds? $50,000. A very specific amount. I checked our bank statements again, and there it was. A transfer of exactly $50,000 from our shared savings account made 6 months ago. Catherine had told me that money was to invest in a business with a designer friend. Another lie. I replied to Frank. Yes, investigate everything. I want to know exactly where every cent she moved in the last 2 years went. I wasn't going to be able to sleep, so I decided to do something productive with my insomnia. I started writing a detailed document, a complete timeline of the infidelity based on all the evidence I had collected. Every lie, every suspicious transaction, every work trip, every recovered message. The document reached 32 pages. As I was writing, I heard movement upstairs. Catherine had woken up. I heard her steps in the bathroom, then the hallway. She came downstairs quietly and found me in the living room, in front of my laptop. Thomas? Still awake? I quickly closed the laptop. Can't sleep. Work stuff. She came closer and sat next to me on the couch. For a moment, we just stayed there in silence. I could feel her guilt emanating from her like heat, or maybe it was just my own paranoia. "Thomas, is everything okay between us?" she finally asked. The question was so absurd I almost laughed. "Everything okay? You just married another man 24 hours ago. Why do you ask that?" I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "I don't know. I feel you've been distant lately, like you're mentally somewhere else." The irony was crushing. She was the one who had been somewhere else for years, literally marrying another person, and now she was accusing me of being distant. "Just stressed with work," I lied. "Nothing I can't handle." She placed her hand on mine. It was the first time she had touched me willingly in weeks. The gesture made me feel sick. "If you need to talk, I'm here. We're a team, remember? A team." What a joke. Teams don't betray each other. Teams don't secretly marry other people. "I know, thanks." I got up, moving away from her touch. "I'm going to try to get some sleep. I have an early meeting." I didn't have a meeting. I just needed to get away from her before I exploded and told her everything I knew. It wasn't time yet. I needed the divorce papers to be ready. I needed to ensure all my finances were protected. I needed every piece of my revenge plan to be perfectly in place. Sunday passed with palpable tension. Catherine tried to act normal, suggesting we watch a movie together or go for a walk. I rejected every suggestion with work excuses. The truth is, I couldn't stand being near her any longer than strictly necessary. That day I also received more information from Frank. He had tracked Catherine's movements during her supposed work trips. It turned out that on every one of those trips, Robert had been in the same city, in the same hotel, sometimes even in the next room. The evidence of her infidelity was so abundant, it was almost obscene. I also discovered something else. The wedding with Robert hadn't been their first attempt. They had tried to get married 6 months earlier, but something had stopped them. I found emails between Catherine and the wedding planner canceling an earlier reservation. The reason? Legal issues to resolve first. Legal issues, meaning me. I was the legal problem they needed to resolve. They were likely looking for a way to divorce me without raising suspicion, or worse, without having to divide assets equally. That's why they had waited. That's why Catherine had kept pretending, keeping up appearances while planning her escape. Monday morning, David called me. "The papers are ready. When do you want to proceed?" "Today, now." "Perfect. I need you to come sign them. Then I'll personally ensure they are served to her." I arrived at David's office at 9 o'clock in the morning. He had a complete package prepared. Divorce complaint citing adultery and bigamy, request for restitution of misappropriated funds, and a temporary restraining order to prevent Catherine from accessing any account or property in my name. "This is rock solid," David said, handing me the documents. "With all the evidence you gathered, no judge is going to side with her. In fact, she's likely to face criminal charges once this becomes official." I signed each page with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction, because I was finally taking control of the situation. Sadness, because this represented the definitive end of 8 years of my life. 8 years that I had believed were real and meaningful. "Do you want to be present when they are served?" David asked. I thought about it for a moment. Part of me wanted to see her face when she received the papers. I wanted to witness the moment she realized her plan had failed. But a more mature part knew that would only prolong the pain. "No. Just make sure there's proof that she received them." "Understood. I'll send a process server to your house this afternoon." "Will she be there?" "Yes. She works from home on Mondays." After signing everything, I went to the bank and permanently closed all shared accounts. The manager looked at me sympathetically when I explained I was in the process of divorce. He helped me ensure all my money was protected and that Catherine couldn't access anything. I also changed the passwords for all our shared services: Netflix, Spotify, even the house alarm. I hired a moving company to come on Wednesday to pick up all my belongings. I had found a temporary furnished apartment near my job where I would stay during the divorce process. While I was making all these preparations, my phone kept vibrating with messages from Frank. He had discovered even more. Catherine and Robert had opened a joint bank account a year ago. They had been planning to buy a house together. They already had furniture set aside at an exclusive design store. A whole parallel life carefully built while I worked like an idiot to maintain our home. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, David called me. "It's done. The process server just delivered the papers to her." According to him, she turned pale and started screaming, asking what this was all about. The process server explained she had 48 hours to legally respond or get her own lawyer. Did she say anything else? Only that she wanted to talk to you urgently. She's going to call you, Thomas, probably multiple times. My advice is, don't answer. Let everything be handled through lawyers. Understood. I hung up and waited. I didn't have to wait long. 5 minutes later, my phone exploded with calls from Catherine. One after another, non-stop. I let each one go to voicemail. Then the text messages came. "Thomas, what does this mean? Divorce. What are you talking about? Please call me. This is a horrible misunderstanding. You can't do this. We have to talk. Thomas, please, I love you. Whatever you think happened, you're wrong." The messages became more desperate as the minutes passed. "Thomas, at least give me a chance to explain. I can't believe you're doing this without even talking to me first. I'm coming over. We need to resolve this face to face." That last message put me on alert. I didn't want to see her, not yet, so I left my office and went to a nearby coffee shop. I sat in a corner overlooking the street and ordered a coffee I wouldn't drink. 20 minutes later, I received a message from my home security system. Catherine had arrived. The cameras I had secretly installed the week before showed her frantically entering, searching for me throughout the house. I saw her calling me from different rooms, yelling my name with increasing desperation. Then I saw her find something I had intentionally left on the dining room table. A printout of a single photo from her wedding with Robert. The photo where they were cutting the cake together, smiling like the happy couple they pretended to be. Her reaction was even better than I had imagined. She froze, staring at the photo for almost a full minute. Then she collapsed into a chair, the photo trembling in her hands. Through the camera, I could see she was crying, but it didn't stir any compassion in me. Those tears were too late and for the wrong reasons. She wasn't crying because she had hurt me. She was crying because she had been caught. My phone rang again. This time I answered. "Thomas." Her voice was broken, hysterical. "Please let me explain. This is not what you think." "It's not what I think," I replied with a calm that surprised even me. "Because what I think is that you married another man while still married to me. Is that what it's not?" There was a long silence. "How? How did you know?" "I hired a professional photographer. He documented every moment of your beautiful ceremony. I must say, you looked radiant in that white dress. Very different from the blue dress you left the house in, by the way." "Thomas, I can explain everything. It's complicated." "It doesn't seem complicated to me. It seems quite simple. You lied to me, you betrayed me, and you committed bigamy. What part of that is complicated. I don't love Robert. It was a stupid thing to do, a terrible mistake. My family pressured me. They said it was better for my career, that he could offer me more opportunities. That excuse infuriated me more than anything else she had said. Don't insult me with additional lies, Catherine. I read all your messages with him. The ones from 3 years ago, where you told him you couldn't stand being with me anymore. The messages where you planned your future together. The messages where you laughed about how naive I was. I could hear her sobbing on the other end of the line. I'm so sorry. Please, Thomas. We can fix this. I'll go to Robert right now and we'll annul everything. We'll say it was a mistake, that it doesn't count. Please don't destroy our marriage over this. The audacity of her request left me speechless for a few seconds. Destroy our marriage? Catherine, you already destroyed it. You destroyed it every time you slept with him. You destroyed it when you spent $50,000 of our savings on a ring for another man. You destroyed it when you planned an entire wedding with your family while I believed we had a future together. I'll give the money back, all of it, I promise. I don't want your promises. I want the divorce. And if you try to complicate it, I will file criminal charges for bigamy. Do you know how many years in prison you could face for that? Her crying intensified. You can't do that to me. I'm your wife. No, Catherine. You're Robert's wife. I'm just the idiot who was married to you first. I hung up and blocked her number. Calls immediately started coming in from other numbers. Her mother, her sister, even her father called me. Something he hadn't done in the 8 years I had been married to his daughter. I ignored all the calls and stayed in the coffee shop, watching the security cameras of my house. Catherine was still there, pacing, talking frantically on the phone. At one point, I saw her grab her laptop and start checking our bank accounts. I could imagine her shock upon discovering they were all empty or closed. Then she did something that surprised me. She pulled out her phone and seemed to be deleting things. Probably wiping out evidence, messages with Robert, anything that could incriminate her further. Little did she know it was already too late. I already had everything backed up on multiple devices. My phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. It was Robert. We need to talk, man to man. I couldn't help but laugh. Now he wanted to talk? After sleeping with my wife for years and marrying her behind my back, I replied. I have nothing to talk about with you. If you want to communicate, do it through my lawyer. His response came almost immediately. Look, this got out of hand. Neither of us wanted to hurt you. But love is like that sometimes. You can't control it. Catherine and I have a real connection. I hope you can eventually understand and let us be happy. The arrogance of that message stunned me. This guy actually believed I should just accept that he stole my wife and wish them happiness. The disconnect from reality was astonishing. I replied, You just married a woman who was already married. That means your marriage is legally invalid. So, technically, she's still my wife, and when this is over, she's going to be penniless. Good luck being happy with that. He didn't reply. I blocked his number too. I spent the rest of the afternoon in that coffee shop, watching through the cameras as Catherine finally left the house. I saw her sit in her car for almost an hour, likely processing that her perfect plan had collapsed. Eventually, she drove off. The entrance cameras showed she was carrying a suitcase. She was probably going to stay with her mother, or more likely, with Robert. That night I returned home. It felt strangely empty without her, but also cleaner, as if a toxic presence had left. I packed the rest of my important belongings into boxes. I didn't want to be there when she eventually returned for her things. My phone rang. It was David. I have news. Catherine just hired a lawyer, George Taylor. He's known for being aggressive in contested divorces. And is that bad? Not for you. It is for her, because it means she's going to fight. And when they fight in court, all your evidence is going to become public. Photos of her wedding, messages, everything. It's going to be a media spectacle. That made me think. Part of me wanted everything to be public. I wanted everyone to know exactly who Catherine was. But another part just wanted this to end quickly, so I could start rebuilding my life. What do you recommend? Offer her a settlement. She gets nothing. She doesn't fight for any property or alimony. She signs the immediate annulment, and you don't file criminal charges. It's more than a generous offer, considering she could go to prison. Do it. But we only give her 24 hours to accept. After that, I proceed with everything. Understood. I'll send the proposal right now. I hung up and poured myself a whiskey. It was the first time in days I felt like I could breathe a little. The process had begun. The truth was coming out. And although it hurt enormously, I knew I was doing the right thing. That night I slept on the couch in my house, surrounded by boxes. I dreamed of Catherine. But not the Catherine I knew. I dreamed of a stranger with her face. Someone I never really knew. Someone capable of such elaborate and cold betrayal that it made me question if there had ever been anything real between us. Tuesday dawned with a flurry of messages from David. Catherine and her lawyer had rejected the settlement. Not only had they rejected it, but they had filed a countersuit alleging that I was the one who had been unfaithful, that I had been emotionally abusive for years, and that she deserved half of all our property plus substantial alimony. The audacity of their claims would have made me laugh if I hadn't been so furious. She was accusing me of exactly what she had done. It was a classic projection tactic, and apparently her lawyer George Taylor was an expert in this type of legal manipulation. "Don't worry," David wrote to me. "This is just theater. When we present our evidence at the preliminary hearing, their case will completely fall apart. But be prepared, because they will try to destroy your reputation before that happens." He was right. That same afternoon, messages started coming in from friends and acquaintances asking me if it was true that I had cheated on Catherine. Apparently, she had begun spreading rumors in our social circle, telling a twisted version of events where I was the villain and she was the innocent victim. "I heard Thomas cheated on her with someone from work," wrote Sarah, a mutual friend. "Catherine is devastated. I can't believe you did that to her." To every person who contacted me, I replied the same thing. Everything will be clear soon. The truth always comes out. But Catherine's smear campaign was working. Within hours, I had lost the support of at least a dozen people I considered friends. It was frustrating. But David had advised me not to reveal anything yet, to wait until the court hearing to present all the evidence at once. That same day, I officially moved into the temporary apartment. It was a small, functional space, with the bare minimum needed. While unpacking my things, I reflected on how drastically my life had changed in less than a week. 7 days ago, I thought I had a solid marriage. Now I was living alone, facing a complicated divorce, and dealing with the fact that my wife had married another man. Frank called me that night with more information. "I have something I think you'll want to see." Catherine and Robert were at the bank this morning trying to open an additional joint account. The bank denied them service when they discovered she is still legally married to you. Seriously? Yes, and there's more. Robert apparently got furious. There was a pretty intense argument between them in the bank parking lot. One of my contacts witnessed everything and sent me this. A video arrived. In it, I could see Robert yelling at Catherine in front of her car. "You told me you were already divorced," I could hear him shout. "You lied to me about all of this. Do you have any idea what kind of trouble you put me in? Catherine tried to calm him down, but he remained furious. My previous marriage ended because of infidelity, and now it turns out I'm involved in a bigamy case. My professional reputation is at risk. The video ended with Robert getting into his car and speeding away, leaving Catherine standing alone in the parking lot. Seeing her there, vulnerable and abandoned, should have given me satisfaction. Instead, I only felt a deep sadness for the pathetic nature of the entire situation. On Wednesday morning, I received an unexpected call from Gail, my mother-in-law. I hesitated before answering, but curiosity got the better of me. Thomas. Her voice sounded different, less haughty than usual. I need to talk to you. It's important. If it's about the divorce, you need to talk to my lawyer. It's not about that. Well, it is related. But please just give me 10 minutes of your time, I beg you. There was something in her tone that made me pause. I agreed to meet her at a neutral coffee shop the next day. When I arrived, I found her sitting at a table in the back, looking much smaller and more fragile than I remembered. Gail had always been an imposing woman, self-assured, dominating. The woman across from me seemed to have aged 10 years in a week. "Thank you for coming," she said when I sat down. "I know I don't deserve it. Why did you want to see me?" She took a deep breath. "I want to apologize. For everything. For being complicit in what Catherine did to you. For participating in that wedding farce. For being so blind and cruel." Her words took me by surprise. What changed? Reality. When we thought everything was secret, it was easy to justify. To tell myself that Catherine deserved to be happy. That love was complicated. All that nonsense. She paused, wiping away tears that were starting to form. But now that everything is out in the open, now that I see the real consequences of our actions, I'm ashamed of myself, Thomas, deeply. Your daughter committed bigamy. You helped organize that wedding knowing she was still married to me. Did you really think there would be no consequences? We didn't think. Or we didn't want to think. We were all caught up in this fantasy where we could just create a new reality and ignore the old one. She looked up to meet my gaze directly. But I didn't just come to apologize. I came to warn you. That completely caught my attention. What kind of something? I don't have all the details, but I overheard Catherine talking to her lawyer. They are trying to portray you as violent, as someone dangerous. They are going to claim they are afraid of you, that they need a restraining order against you. That's ridiculous. I've never laid a hand on anyone. I know. But her lawyer is advising her to create a narrative where you are the aggressor. They are going to say that's why she sought comfort in Robert, that he was her escape from an abusive marriage. The strategy was sickening, but predictable. If Catherine could convince a judge that I was abusive, she could justify her infidelity and potentially get a better outcome in the divorce. Why are you telling me this? Gail lowered her gaze. Because I've done enough damage, and because even though Catherine is my daughter, what she's doing is wrong. Very wrong. You don't deserve to be destroyed by our mistakes. Does your family know you're here? No, and they can't know. If Catherine finds out I warned you, she will never forgive me. We were silent for a moment. Finally, Gail pulled an envelope from her purse and slid it toward me. What is this? Text messages between Catherine and her lawyer. I printed them from her computer when she wasn't looking. Their entire planned strategy is in there. How they are going to manipulate evidence. What witnesses they are going to present. Everything. I took the envelope, feeling its weight. Why are you doing this? She's your daughter. Because being a mother doesn't mean protecting your child when they do something unforgivable. It means teaching them to face the consequences of their actions. I should have taught her that years ago. Maybe if I had, none of this would have happened. Gail stood up to leave, but before she did, she added, "Thomas, I know you probably hate me now, and I understand that. But I want you to know that I always thought you were a good man. Too good for our family, it turns out. I wish things had been different." I watched her walk away, leaving me with the envelope in my hands. When I got to my car, I opened it and started reading. What I found was even worse than Gail had implied. There were messages where Catherine and her lawyer discussed how to coach witnesses to testify that they had seen me acting aggressively. They discussed how Catherine could provoke me to respond angrily and record those interactions out of context. There was even a plan for her to put bruises on her arms using special makeup and take photos that she would then present as evidence of domestic violence. It was a complete conspiracy to destroy my life and my reputation. And the most terrifying part is that it probably would have worked if Gail hadn't warned me. I immediately called David and sent him photos of all the documents. "This is gold," he said after reviewing them. "With this, we not only win the divorce, but we can file charges for attempted procedural fraud. Catherine and her lawyer could face severe legal consequences." How severe? George Taylor could be disbarred, and Catherine could rack up more criminal charges in addition to bigamy. I couldn't sleep that night, not out of anxiety, but out of disbelief. The woman I had shared 8 years of my life with was willing to falsely accuse me of domestic violence just to get her way in a divorce. Who was this person, really? How had I been so blind for so long? On Thursday morning, my phone exploded with notifications. Someone, I don't know who, had leaked photos of Catherine's wedding to Robert on social media. Not just any photos, but the professional photos that Frank had taken, complete with timestamps and GPS location. The images were going viral. The comments were ruthless. Did this woman really marry 2 men at the same time? What a level of nerve. Poor original husband. This should be illegal. Oh, wait, it is. Within hours, the story had been picked up by several local gossip blogs. "Local designer involved in bigamy scandal," read the headlines. The company where both Catherine and Robert worked was also dragged into the scandal. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered. "Thomas Rivera?" a professional female voice asked. "Yes. Who is this?" "I'm Patricia Smith, a reporter for Channel 7 News. We'd like to do an interview with you about the bigamy case involving your wife. Would you be willing?" "No, thank you. No comment." I hung up, but the calls kept coming. Reporters, bloggers, even a producer from a TV show about scandalous legal cases. Everyone wanted my side of the story. David advised me to stay quiet. Let the scandal do its work. You don't need to say anything publicly. The facts speak for themselves. But there was someone who was speaking publicly. Catherine. That afternoon, she posted a long message on her social media. "With a broken heart, I need to clarify some misunderstandings. What many are seeing as a scandal is actually a complicated love story in a marriage that had ended a long time ago. My relationship with Thomas was toxic and emotionally destructive. I found refuge in Robert, who showed me what true love was. Yes, I made mistakes in how I handled the situation, but I did it from a place of survival, not malice. I ask for understanding and privacy as I navigate this very difficult time." The manipulation in that message was artistic. She painted herself as the victim, as someone who had fled a toxic marriage into the arms of her true love. She didn't mention that that toxic marriage had remained good enough for me to pay all our bills, including the $50,000 she used for the wedding with her true love. The comments on her post were divided. Some supported her, saying things like, "Love is complicated and don't judge without knowing the full story." Others were brutal. "This is bigamy, not love, and you could go to prison for this." I decided it was time to make my own public statement, not through interviews or social media, but through actions. I contacted Frank and asked him to publish his entire photographic and video archive of the wedding on a public platform with verifiable timestamps. I wanted there to be a permanent and undeniable record of what had happened. I also authorized David to strategically leak some of the text messages between Catherine and Robert to certain media outlets. Not all of them, just enough to show that this had been a planned infidelity for years, not a romantic story of love found amid suffering. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. Over the weekend, the scandal had grown exponentially. The company where Catherine and Robert worked issued a statement saying both had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation of the accusations. In other words, they had been suspended without pay. On Sunday night, I received a desperate message from Catherine from a new number I hadn't blocked yet. "Thomas, please. This got completely out of hand. My career is destroyed. Robert is blaming me for everything, and he left me. I'm living with my mother and I have no income. Please withdraw the lawsuit. I will do anything. I'll sign whatever you want. I just need this to stop." I read the message 3 times. Part of me felt a small satisfaction at seeing her finally facing real consequences. But another part, the part that still remembered the woman I had fallen in love with years ago, felt something akin to pity. I replied, "You had the opportunity to resolve this quietly. You rejected the settlement and decided to attack me. Now you will face the consequences of that decision. It was my lawyer who advised me to do that. I just wanted to end everything quickly." Lie. I have the messages between you and your lawyer where you planned to falsely accuse me of domestic violence, where you discussed manipulating evidence. All of that was your idea, Catherine, not your lawyer's. There was a long silence before her next message. "How do you have those messages?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is that I have them, and I'm going to present them in court tomorrow. Thomas, please. I'll go to prison. My life will be completely ruined." "Your life is already ruined. You ruined it yourself when you decided to marry another man while still married to me. I'm just making sure the truth comes out." She didn't reply again. I blocked that number too. Monday arrived quickly. I put on my best suit, the same one I had worn on our wedding day. There was something poetic about that, wearing the clothes from our beginning for the official end. David picked me up early. In the car, we went over the strategy. "They're going to try to rattle you," he warned me. "George Taylor is known for his intimidation tactics, but remember, we have all the evidence on our side. Just stay calm and answer honestly." What if she actually cries? If she makes a scene? Let her do it. Tears don't change the facts, and Judge Martinez is known for seeing through that kind of manipulation. We arrived at the courthouse 30 minutes before the hearing. There were several reporters waiting outside, but I followed David's advice and didn't say anything. I just walked straight into the building. Inside the courtroom, Catherine was already sitting with her lawyer. When I walked in, she turned to look at me. She looked terrible. Swollen eyes, smeared makeup, wrinkled clothes. She was a destroyed version of the impeccable woman she used to be. Our eyes met briefly. In her eyes, I saw pleading, desperation, regret. But I also saw something deeper, the realization that she had lost. Completely. Judge Martinez entered and we all stood up. He was a man in his 60s, with a reputation for being fair, but strict. All right, he began, reviewing the documents in front of him. This is the case of Rivera versus Rivera. Divorce complaint on grounds of adultery and bigamy. Are the attorneys ready to present? David stood up. Yes, Your Honor. George Taylor also rose. The defense is ready, Your Honor. Very well. Mr. David, you may begin. What followed was a meticulous presentation of evidence. David projected photo after photo of Catherine's wedding to Robert. He showed the timestamps, the GPS records, the photographer's testimonies. Then he presented the text messages between Catherine and Robert, dating back 3 years, documenting their infidelity and planning. Catherine was crying silently in her seat. Her lawyer tried to object several times, but Judge Martinez overruled every objection. Your Honor, George Taylor began when it was his turn. While it is true that my client made errors in judgment, the context is important. Mrs. Rivera was trapped in a marriage where she felt emotionally abandoned. Mr. Rivera worked constantly, ignored her, and— Do you have evidence of that? The judge interrupted. We have my client's testimony, Your Honor. Anything more objective? Messages? Emails? Witness testimonies? George Taylor hesitated. Not at this moment, Your Honor, but— Then we are talking about speculation. Continue. The lawyer tried to rebuild his argument, but it was clear he was lost. He had nothing to counteract the mountain of evidence David had presented. Then David played his final card. He presented the messages between Catherine and her lawyer where they planned to falsely accuse me of domestic violence. The room fell silent as the judge read the documents. His expression became increasingly severe. Mr. Taylor, he finally said, his voice icy. Can you explain this to me? George Taylor had turned pale. Your Honor, those messages were taken out of context. We were only exploring all available legal options. Does exploring legal options include fabricating evidence of domestic abuse? Planning false criminal accusations? I can explain. I think you've explained enough, Mr. Taylor. I will be reporting this to the State Bar for an investigation into your professional conduct. George Taylor sat down abruptly, his career likely over. Judge Martinez turned to Catherine. Mrs. Rivera, do you have anything to say before I issue my decision? Catherine stood up with difficulty. I'm very sorry, Your Honor. I made terrible mistakes. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was confused and— Confused? The judge interrupted her. Mrs. Rivera, you planned an entire wedding, hired event organizers, bought a dress, invited over 100 people, all while still legally married to Mr. Rivera. That is not confusion. That is premeditation. Catherine collapsed back into her chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Here is my decision, the judge continued. I grant an immediate divorce based on the grounds of adultery and bigamy. Mrs. Rivera will receive no division of property or alimony. Furthermore, I order her to return all funds that were improperly removed from marital accounts for the purposes of her second illegal marriage. That amounts to $50,000 plus interest. Catherine audibly groaned. In addition, I am referring this case to the district attorney for evaluation of criminal charges for bigamy under the state penal code. Mrs. Rivera, do you understand that you could face up to 5 years in prison if convicted? Yes, Your Honor, Catherine replied in a voice barely audible. Very well. This court is adjourned. The gavel's strike resonated in the room like a final thunderclap. I left the court feeling an enormous weight lifted from my shoulders. Outside, reporters immediately surrounded me, shouting questions. How do you feel about the decision? Will you ever forgive your wife? What message do you have for others in similar situations? I paused and looked directly into the cameras. I will only say this. The truth always comes out, and actions have consequences. I hope my case serves as a reminder that you cannot build happiness on lies and betrayal. That night, my statement went viral. The media constantly played it back. On social media, thousands of people shared my story with messages of support. Catherine, on the other hand, became the perfect example of what not to do. Her name became synonymous with betrayal and deceit. The company where she worked officially announced her dismissal. Robert published a statement completely distancing himself from her, claiming he had been misled about her marital status. A week after the verdict, I received a final letter from Catherine. It was handwritten, with shaky handwriting. Thomas, I don't expect you to read this, and I certainly don't expect you to forgive me. I just need to say a few things I should have said a long time ago. You were right about everything. I built my happiness on lies, and now I am paying the price. I lost my career, my reputation, my family has turned their back on me, and I face possible criminal charges. But most of all, I lost someone who truly loved me. Someone who was faithful, who worked hard for us, who gave me everything he had. There is no excuse for what I did. I was not confused or lost. I was simply selfish, cruel, and stupid. I thought I could have everything. And now I have nothing. Robert left me last week. He said he can't be with someone who destroyed his reputation. It turns out, his love wasn't as deep as I thought. The irony is that I destroyed a real marriage for a fantasy that evaporated as soon as things got tough. I'm not writing this seeking compassion or a second chance. I know that will never happen. I just want you to know that I am sorry, deeply sorry, from the bottom of my being, and that I hope someday you find someone who values you as you deserve. Someone who isn't so foolish as to destroy something so valuable. Goodbye, Thomas. I wish you all the happiness in the world. Catherine. I read the letter once and put it in a drawer. I felt neither satisfaction nor pain, just a kind of quiet closure. This chapter of my life was over. The following months were about rebuilding. The district attorney decided to proceed with criminal charges against Catherine for bigamy. Her trial was scheduled for 6 months later. Eventually, they reached a plea deal. 2 years of probation, community service, and full restitution of the $50,000 plus interest and legal costs. Robert also faced consequences. Although not criminally charged, his professional reputation was destroyed. He had to move to another city to find work. Gail kept her word and never revealed that she was the one who gave me the incriminating messages. She kept her distance from the whole family during the scandal. One day she found me at a supermarket and simply gave me a silent hug before leaving. It was her way of saying she was sorry for everything that had happened. I, for my part, focused on rebuilding my life. I got a promotion at work that allowed me to move to a better apartment. I started therapy to process everything that had happened. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage. 6 months after the divorce, at an engineering conference, I met Valerie. She was an architect, intelligent, straightforward, and completely different from Catherine. Our first conversation lasted 3 hours. The second, all night. I wasn't looking for a relationship, but sometimes the best things come when you're not looking for them. A year after the scandal, things finally quieted down. Catherine's case was no longer news. People had moved on to other scandals. Life continued. 2 years after that devastating day when I discovered Catherine's betrayal, my life had taken a turn I never imagined possible. I was standing in my new apartment, one I had bought with the money I recovered from Catherine plus my own savings, looking out the window at the city. Valerie was in the kitchen making coffee, humming a song I didn't recognize, but that made me smile. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, approaching with 2 steaming mugs. "How things change," I replied honestly. 2 years ago, I thought my life was over. Today, I realize it was just beginning. Valerie gave me a soft kiss on the cheek. We had been together for a year, and every day I was surprised by how different a relationship based on honesty and mutual respect was. There were no secrets between us, no mind games or manipulations, just 2 adults building something real together. My phone vibrated with a notification. It was an article a friend had sent me. The headline read, "Ex-designer involved in bigamy scandal completes community service." There was a photo of Catherine leaving a community center, looking tired and much older than her 32 years. The article explained that she had completed her 2 years of probation and her 500 hours of community service. It briefly mentioned the scandal, but mostly focused on how her life had changed since then. She was working as an administrative assistant at a small firm, earning a fraction of what she used to make as a designer. She lived alone in a modest apartment. According to the article, she had never had a serious relationship again after Robert left her. "Is that about her?" Valerie asked, noting my expression. "Yes. She completed her community service." "How do you feel about it?" I thought about it honestly. "Nothing. I don't feel satisfaction or pity, just nothing. It's like reading about a stranger." And it was true. Catherine had become someone from my past. A lesson learned, but not a burden I was still carrying. Therapy had helped me process the trauma of the betrayal without letting it define my future. That afternoon, as Valerie and I walked through the park, I saw something that made me stop. It was Catherine, sitting alone on a bench, looking at her phone. She had aged noticeably. Her hair, which she always kept perfectly styled, now had visible gray roots. Her clothes were simple and worn, nothing like the designer outfits she used to wear. For a moment our eyes met. I saw recognition in her eyes, followed by shame. She quickly stood up, ready to leave. "Wait," I heard myself say. Valerie squeezed my hand, giving me silent support. Catherine stopped but didn't approach. I walked toward her with Valerie by my side. "Hello, Thomas," Catherine said in a small voice. "I didn't expect to see you." "Hello, Catherine. I read that you completed your community service." "Yes. Yesterday was my last day." She looked at Valerie with curiosity, mixed with something that looked like envy. "You must be Valerie. I saw photos on social media. You look happy together." "We are," I confirmed without elaborating. There was an awkward silence. Finally, Catherine spoke. "I want you to know that I think about what I did every day. There is no moment when I don't regret it. I lost everything for a stupid fantasy. My career, my reputation, my family." She paused. "But most of all, I lost someone who truly loved me. And now I understand that was the most valuable thing I had." "I appreciate you saying that," I replied honestly. "But it doesn't change anything. What happened, happened." "I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that it wasn't in vain. I learned who I really am, and I didn't like what I saw. I've spent these 2 years trying to become a better person." "I wish you the best with that," I said sincerely. And I meant it. Not because I completely forgave her, but because I no longer needed to carry the grudge. "And Robert?" Valerie asked suddenly, surprising me with her directness. Catherine laughed bitterly. "Robert got married 6 months ago to his 24-year-old assistant. Apparently he has a pattern. His new wife doesn't know I existed, or at least that's what I heard." The irony was almost poetic. Robert had remained exactly who he was. A womanizer who jumped from relationship to relationship. Catherine had destroyed her life for someone who never intended to be faithful to her long term. "I'm sorry," I told her, and I genuinely meant it. "Don't be sorry. I deserved it. We both deserved it." She adjusted her cheap purse on her shoulder. "I better go. I have a shift at work in an hour. I work weekends now." "Catherine," I called out before she left. She turned around. "I hope you find peace someday. Truly." Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Thomas. That means more than you think." She looked at Valerie. "Take care of him. He's one of the good ones." "I know," Valerie replied, squeezing my hand. We watched Catherine walk away, a solitary figure heading toward the public bus. It was a very different image from the confident, stylish woman I once knew. "Are you okay?" Valerie asked as we continued our walk. "Yes, I really am." And it was true. Seeing Catherine hadn't reopened old wounds. If anything, it had closed a chapter I didn't even know was still open. That night, as we had dinner at our favorite restaurant, Valerie took my hand across the table. "I've been thinking," she began with a nervous smile. "We've been together for a year. You've met my family. I've met yours. And every day that passes, I become more convinced that I want to build a future with you." My heart started beating faster. "Where are you going with this?" "I'd like us to live together, officially. It doesn't have to be right now, but I want you to know I'm ready for that step when you are." I looked at her. This incredible woman who had shown me what a healthy relationship was. There was no pressure or manipulation in her proposal, just honesty and hope. "I would love that," I replied, feeling a genuine happiness I hadn't experienced in years. In fact, I've been thinking the same thing. We toasted with our wine glasses, celebrating not only our future together, but also the entire journey we had both taken to reach this moment. 3 months later, Valerie officially moved into my apartment. It was an easy, natural process, with no drama or conflict. We decorated together, established shared routines, built a real home. One afternoon, while organizing the study, I found a box with things from my previous marriage. Photos, documents, memories I had kept without knowing what to do with them. "Do you want to keep this?" Valerie asked. Looking at the contents, I thought about it. Those photos showed moments that were real to me at the time, even though I now knew they were built on lies. But they were also part of my history, part of what had made me who I was today. "Yes," I decided, "but not here. I'll store them. They are part of my past, but they don't need to be in my present." We sealed the box and took it to the building's storage unit. It was symbolic in a way, acknowledging that part of my life existed without letting it define my future. The second anniversary of the divorce arrived without fanfare. It passed like any other day, except that I paused for a moment to reflect on how much I had changed. I was no longer the shattered man who had been in that courtroom. I was stronger, wiser, more cautious, but not cynical. I had learned to trust again without being naive. Frank, the private investigator who had helped me document Catherine's betrayal, called me that day. "Thomas, I just wanted to check in and see how you are. It's been 2 years since we worked together." "I'm good, Frank. Very good, actually. Thanks again for all your work." "You're welcome. You know, in my line of work, I see a lot of infidelity cases. Most of the time, people just want revenge. But you handled everything with dignity. You used the information to protect yourself, not to unnecessarily destroy. That says a lot about your character." His words made me reflect. I could have used all that evidence to make Catherine's life even more miserable. I could have focused on pure revenge, but I had chosen a different path. One that allowed me to maintain my integrity while establishing firm boundaries. That year also brought unexpected news. The firm where Catherine used to work closed after losing several major clients due to the scandal. Robert, I heard through mutual acquaintances, had been fired from his new job after his wife discovered his pattern of infidelities. Gail, my ex-mother-in-law, had divorced Catherine's father after he also turned out to have been having affairs for years. The family that boasted so much about its values and unity had completely disintegrated. I felt no satisfaction at this news, only a kind of distant sadness for all the unnecessary pain they had caused each other. On the other hand, my life only got better. I received another promotion at work that put me in charge of important projects. Valerie opened her own architectural firm and quickly began to gain recognition for her innovative work. We were partners in the true sense of the word, supporting each other without competing or manipulating. One day, while checking my mail, I found an envelope with no return address. Inside was a short letter from Catherine. "Thomas, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I felt I had to write this. I've been in therapy for the last year and a half, working on understanding why I did what I did. My therapist says I have patterns of self-sabotage and external validation seeking that go back to my childhood. I'm not writing this as an excuse. My psychological issues do not justify hurting someone who only showed me love and loyalty. I'm writing because I finally understand something. You were never the problem. I was always the problem. I'm working on being better, not for you or for anyone else, but for myself. Because I cannot live being the person I was. You don't need to respond to this. In fact, I'd prefer you didn't. I just needed you to know that I am finally doing the inner work I should have done years ago. I wish you all the happiness you deserve. Sincerely, Catherine." I showed the letter to Valerie, who read it thoughtfully. "It seems genuine," she commented. "Are you going to reply?" "No. Like she said, it's not necessary. We are no longer part of each other's lives, and that's okay." I put the letter away without responding. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because we both needed to move forward completely. Sometimes true closure comes from letting go, not from having the last word. 6 months later, Valerie and I got engaged. It was a simple, perfect proposal during a walk on the beach. There was no drama or grand gestures. Just two people deciding to build a future together, based on real love and mutual respect. When we started planning the wedding, I realized I didn't feel an ounce of the fear or anxiety one might expect from someone who had been through what I had. That told me everything I needed to know about Valerie and our relationship. On our wedding day, surrounded by friends and family who genuinely celebrated our love, I realized how fortunate I was. Not because I had overcome a betrayal, but because that experience had taught me to value the real over the apparent, substance over style. During my speech at the reception, I shared something I had learned. 3 years ago, I thought my life was over when my previous marriage collapsed in the most painful way possible. Today I realize that was not an end. It was a liberation. It freed me to find something real, something built on honesty instead of lies. Valerie, thank you for showing me what true love is. And to everyone here, thank you for celebrating with us today. The room erupted in applause. I looked at Valerie, radiant in her wedding dress, and knew with absolute certainty that I had found what was always meant to be. Months after the wedding, I was at a conference when someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around and came face to face with someone I didn't expect to see. Robert. He looked terrible, haggard, with deep circles under his eyes, clothes that looked like they hadn't been washed in days. "Thomas," he said in a hoarse voice, "I need to talk to you." My first reaction was to walk away. But something in his desperate expression made me stop. "You have 5 minutes," I said coldly. We sat down in an empty corner of the conference hotel lobby. "I ruined everything," he began without preamble. "My career, my reputation, my last marriage, everything. And the worst part is, I know it's my fault. Completely my fault." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I needed to apologize. I know it's late. Probably too late. But I've been in rehab, not for drugs, but for sex addiction and destructive behaviors. And part of my recovery is making amends with the people I hurt." I looked at this man who had helped destroy my former marriage. I didn't feel the rage I would have once felt, only a kind of distant pity. "I accept your apology," I finally said, "but not because I need it. I accept it because it seems like you need it." "How do you do it?" he asked suddenly. "How do you move on after something like that? I saw photos of your wedding. You look happy, truly happy." "I chose to heal instead of staying trapped in the pain. I chose to learn instead of just suffering. And I chose to be with someone who values what we have." Robert nodded slowly. "Catherine asks about you sometimes." "Well, she used to ask. I haven't seen her in months. I hope you both find peace," I said honestly. "But that peace can't come from me. It has to come from yourselves." We said goodbye without drama. As I watched him walk away, dragging his guilt and regret, I felt grateful. Not for his suffering, but for my own freedom. Freedom from resentment, from bitterness, from the need for others to pay forever for their mistakes. Today, 3 years after that devastating discovery, my life is unrecognizable from what it was. Valerie and I just bought our first house together. We are talking about starting a family. My career is thriving. My relationships are healthy and genuine. And Catherine, the last I heard of her, was still working at that small company, living quietly, trying to rebuild her life from scratch. We are not friends, nor will we ever be. But we are not enemies either. We are simply two people who shared a part of their lives, learned painful lessons, and followed very different paths. The story that began with betrayal and ended in divorce is now just that. A story. One that taught me invaluable lessons about trusting but verifying, about valuing honesty above everything, about recognizing red flags before they turn into wildfires. But more importantly, it taught me that the end of something, however painful, can be the beginning of something much better. That you can be betrayed and survive. That you can lose everything and still rebuild. That true love exists, but it can only flourish on honest soil. A few days ago, while organizing old files, I found the last message Catherine had sent me. I read it once more and finally deleted it. Not with anger or satisfaction, but with simple acceptance. That chapter was closed, completely, as I write this from the study of the house I share with Valerie, with life and future plans pinned to the board in front of me. I realize something fundamental. The best revenge was never about destroying Catherine. It was about building a life so genuinely happy that her betrayal turned into the best favor she could have ever done me. What do you think of this story? Have you ever faced a situation where betrayal forced you to completely rebuild your life? Do you think forgiveness is necessary to move on? I would love to read your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for joining me in this story and for staying until the end.